The movie opens with Joe waking up in an open-air concrete wall room. Joe doesn't know where he is, and he rushes to the steel door, but it is locked. He then starts yelling and asking where he is, and he gets a response from a guy in the next room. The guy in the next room tells him to stop yelling and informs him that Joe has been dosed and brought to this prison. Joe is more confused and wants to ask more questions, but the guy tells him he needs to go to work and tells him to just rest today, as tomorrow things will be much worse. Joe then tries to climb the concrete wall, but anyway, he tries it. It doesn't work, so he gives up and takes a seat. Moments later, he starts hearing whistling that is coming outside his door. Then food and water is slipped into his room. Joe runs to the door and asks the guard what is going on, but the guard calls him employee and orders him to back out. Joe then says he is an employee for Mallard, which is a multi-trillion-dollar company. And this is not his workplace, but he doesn't get any response. That night, Joe gets hungry, so he decides to open his food package, and he finds Mallard printed on the packaging. Then suddenly a screen appears on his wall, and an AI woman's voice starts talking. She greets him and informs him that he has joined advanced career training, and that she is sure he will become the best version of himself. She then disappears before Joe can ask a question. His wall friend then talks to him again and tells him that they are prisoners of Mallard, and that the reason he is here is because he pissed them off. Joe can't believe this is really Mallard, so he tells him everything will make sense tomorrow. At midnight, Joe wakes up from his sleep to the noise of a screaming captive. The captive is begging the guards to give him a second chance and promises he will do better tomorrow. Joe covers his ears as the captive screams and then dies. The AI voice then poops up and broadcasts to everyone about the termination of the person. The next morning, Joe talks to his wall friend and asks him what was going on. His friend tells him that this is their nightly motivation and that he will get used to it. Joe is still confused on how a multi-trillion-dollar is doing this and asks his friend for more information. His friend explains that all employees had signed away their freedom when they joined the company and that Mallard can do whatever they want with them. He then tells him if he wants to leave this place alive and see his pregnant wife, then he should follow the rules. The AI voice then comes back live and talks to Joe. She tells him that since Joe's wife got pregnant, his work output has lowered, which hurts the company's stock. So to correct that, Joe has been admitted to the advanced career training. She informs him that starting from today, Joe will be pushing the mill that is inside his room. His work time will be 16 hours, and by that time, he will need to do 50 rotations. She then tells him even if he hits his daily quota of 50, he needs to do more because if at the end of the day he does the least rotation compared to the other employees, then he gets terminated. Joe then starts his day and works all the 16 hours and completes 100 rotations. While he works, the AI plays him jazz music, and with every rotation, she shows him an advertisement for Mallard. At midnight, he is awakened with another person getting killed. The next morning before work, Joe talks with his wall neighbor and learns that 100 rotation is too low, but he also learns that if he goes too high, he will be expected to do that every day, so he will need to find a balance between not doing enough and not overdoing it too. Joe does 150 rotations this day and is saved from termination. A few days go by with minimal improvement from Joe, and he gets more frustrated as the days go by. One day, Joe runs out of water in the middle of the day. The day was very hot, and when he asks for a refill, he gets no response. His wall friend advised him to go to a blind spot at the back of the room and pee in his water bottle. He tells him he can filter his pee using his soul and drink it when he gets thirsty. Joe thinks this is a ridiculous idea and refuses to do it, but his friend tells him that Mallard knows how much water he needs to survive, and he is only going to get that amount. He tells him the purpose of the work is to test his limits, so Joe decides to show Mallard his limit by doing 370 rotations in one day. After he finishes his work, the AI congratulates him on his success and gives him a pen as a reward. Then the next morning when he wakes up, he sees his daily quota has been changed from 50 to 370. Joe has blistered his hand doing 370 rotations the previous day, so he knows he can't do this. In his anger, he has overdone himself, and now he doesn't know what to do. He tries his best throughout the day, but he only does 250 rotations. The AI informs him, since he hasn't met his daily quota, he is going to be punished. Joe is sick of the work, so he tells the AI he can't do it. But she tells him if he can't do it, then she can bring in a helper for him. She then shows him a live feed of his wife Kate and tells him if he can't reach his quota, then they will bring in his wife into the prison to help him too. When Joe sees this, He begs the AI to give him one more chance and promises to do better the next day. She then agrees to give him one more chance. The next day, Joe gets right to work and starts pushing himself to the limit. While pushing the mill, he finds a name engraved on his mill. He asks his friend who Alex was, and he tells him Alex is the only person that has ever made it out. Joe then gets back to his work, and just a few minutes before the workday ends, he reaches his daily quota. The AI congratulates him and tells him she has a price for him. She then shows him Kate giving birth to his son and tells him if he can reach his potential, he can soon meet his family. Joe is devastated. He can't be there when his son was born and is now more determined to get out. He asks his friend more about Alex, and he is told to go to the blind spot again to see how Alex went out. Joe is confused, but he does, as he's told as first. He doesn't see anything different, but at a closer look he sees there is a crack on the wall. He figures out Alex must have escaped by breaking the wall, so he grabs his metal pen and starts making a hole in the wall. For the next few weeks, we see Joe working on the mill at day and working at the wall at night. Finally, he is able to make a hole enough to fit him, so at night he makes a run for it. He crawls through the wall and makes it to a different room, but the room is pitch dark and he can't see anything. He then starts to slowly walk, but out of nowhere the guard shows up and knocks him up. Joe wakes up back in his cell. His hole has also been fully patched up, so he doesn't even have another chance. The AI then appears and tells him she is very disappointed with his action. She then tells him as a punishment, everyone's quota will be raised to 1,000 a day, and his friend will also get an extra punishment, and Joe hears his friend gets his leg broken, which makes him unable to work. Before work time starts, Joe and his friend start talking. They know if he can't work, he will get terminated, so they start saying their final goodbyes. Joe then asks what his name is, and his friend reveals he is actually Alex. He tells him he also tried to run away, but it didn't work. He then reveals that he was actually one of the engineers that built the AI. But then the AI starts writing code for herself and making her own rules. This made Alex worry, and he shared his concern to other workers, which is why he got sent to the prison. While Alex is venting, Joe realizes if the AI is not getting controlled by humans, that means it is following rules that are in its code. Joe realizes that the AI can only follow rules, and if they can find a loophole, then they can outsmart it. Joe then comes up with an idea for everyone to not work. This means there won't be anyone left behind, and if there is no one with a low score, then the AI can't kill anyone. Alex tells him that it can work, but he will have to convince everyone else too. So, Joe gets up on his mill and gives a loud, motivational speech to everyone else. Everyone knows they can't do the 1,000 rotation, so they join his protest and also refuse to work. For the first time since Joe arrived at the prison, he gets to rest. He ignores the AI when she tries to talk to him and gets a good day rest. But everything doesn't go as planned. 10 minutes before the work time ends, the AI tells Joe that he doesn't understand the rules and announces to everyone that if they are still at 0 rotation, then all of them will be terminated. Joe thinks she is bluffing, but the rest get scared and start doing their job. Alex then calls Joe and tells him to do the job, and knowing his plan has failed, Joe obliges and does 1 rotation. That midnight, Joe hears Alex getting taken for termination and getting killed. The next morning, the AI comes online and shows him a video of his son taking his first step so he can be more motivated. But this makes Joe angrier as he realizes he has been in this prison for a long time. Joe loses it and starts insulting Mallard. The AI tries to warn him, but he doesn't listen and keeps showing. The AI then announces since Joe is disrespecting the company, then he will get terminated. His cell door then opens, and 12 people wearing white come in. The guard then comes in after them and takes out a syringe filled with poison. He then starts giving a speech about how he will get Joe's job and his home once he kills him, which gives Joe time to attack him and take him down. Joe then punches the guard's face to the brink of death, and he stops when the AI encourages him and tells him that if he kills the guard, then he will get promoted. Joe then stands up and says he is not a monster. He then says he doesn't want the promotion and that he quit. Suddenly, Joe wakes up back in Mallard's headquarters. The guard is still alive and reveals to him that Joe was in a simulation for an hour. He explains Joe agreed to do advanced career training simulation at lunchtime, and that everything he experienced was just in his head. He tells him that since Joe has been stuck on level 8, Mallard wanted to see what was holding him back, which is why he was offered the training. Joe was a hard worker, but he was not pushed to his limits. But with this simulation, he was able to be more creative and become a strong leader. Joe is speechless and just listens to the guard. Joe is told he's been promoted to level 1 and then taken to a new floor and shown his new office. Joe is then left alone in his office, and he first calls his wife to make sure everything is fine. His wife is still pregnant, confirming he was really in just a simulation. He tells her he loves her and informs her he will work late tonight. He then turns to us and says, "I'm going to burn this place down." And with that, the movie ends.